Hey everyone, welcome back. Here's another video on simplifying radical expressions. Real quickly, here's just a reminder of the three rules that have to be met, or the three conditions that have to be met when simplifying a radical expression. No perfect square factors in the radicand, no fractions in the radicand, no radicals in the denominator. In this video, we're going to focus again on the first condition, no perfect square factors in the radicand. However, we're going to throw some variables in there. So in part one, we learned that to simplify the radical expression, you have to eliminate any perfect square factors. So to do this, you look for the biggest perfect square that you can divide the number under the radicand. This includes the variable now. And I want to point out that any variable to an even power is a perfect square. So even if we have x to the 8th power, that's a perfect square, because this is equal to x to the 4th times x to the 4th. The same thing multiplied it by itself to give us x to the 8th. And I hope you can see from this that the square root of x to the 8th is just x to the 4th. It's just half of this power. Whatever that even number power is, the square root of it is half of it. Now, if we have an odd number power, we're taking the square root, we're just going to factor out the biggest even number that we can. For instance, let's say we're taking square root of x to the 9th. Well, we know we could break that up into x to the 8th. The largest even number we could take is 8. So we would multiply that by using our product property, just another x. So x to the 8th times x would give us x to the 9th. And we know that square root of x to the 8th is x to the 4th, and then be multiplied by this other radical x. So to simplify, it'd be x to the 4th times radical x. So quick lesson on square roots of variables right there. Now let's go to simplifying numbers and variables together. So radical 8x squared. To start, if you need to, we could break this up into just square root of the numerical part times the square root of the variable part. So radical 8, just like we saw in the first video, part 1, we need to figure out what is the biggest perfect square here. It would be 4. So we'd break square root of 8 up into square root of 4 times square root of 2. I'm not even going to worry about the variable yet. Radical x squared. We know square root of 4 is 2 times radical 2. So I know that the numerical part of this is 2 radical 2. Now I'm going to focus on the variable. So square root of x squared. Luckily, it's an even numbered power here, so we know that that's a perfect square. So this is actually a perfect square. The square root of x squared is just x, or x to the first, because it's half of 2. So now 2 radical 2 times x. Notice that the 2 and the x do not have a radical symbol above them. So we're going to put them on the outside of the radicand, just next to each other. They are being multiplied. This literally is a multiplication problem of 2 times radical 2 times x. So we're just changing the order here, and we'll write it as 2 times x times radical 2. So everything without a radical goes out in front. And then just to clean it up, this would be 2x radical 2. Let's do another one. Square root of x to the 7th. We have an odd numbered power, so we need to factor out or break it up using the biggest even number power that we can, which would be 6. So we're going to break this up into radical x to the 6th times radical x. Square root of x to the 6th, half of this exponent, so it'd be x to the 3rd times square root of x. And again, just clean it up. This would be x to the 3rd radical x. Last one. Square root of 25 times x to the 5th. Again, if you want, you can break this up into numerical part, variable part. Square root of 25 times square root of x to the fifth. Square root of 25, that's already a perfect square. That's 5 times radical x to the fifth. So radical x to the fifth, let's simplify that. Pull out the biggest even number exponent, which would be x to the fourth, times the square root of x. Simplify x to the fourth. So square root of x to the fourth is x to the second times radical x. And then clean it up. Everything on the outside of the radicals or that don't have radicals goes outside. So 5x squared goes outside times radical x.